What if I told you that the richest, wisest man in history achieved his greatest breakthroughs in complete silence? And most people today are failing because they won't stop talking. There's a principle in Solomon's life that almost everyone overlooks. It's not about prayer. It's not about hard work. It's about something so counterintuitive that modern culture fights against it with everything. If you're new to life in Christ, hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to discover will challenge everything you think you know about success. Solomon wrote, "Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues." Proverbs 17, verse 28. But there's something deeper here, a principle of silent success that unlocked divine favor in ways loud ambition never could. Why did Solomon achieve what millions of loud, hustling people never reach? What was the silent principle? And why is no one talking about it? Let's uncover the truth. His father David had just died. The throne was Solomon's. The entire nation held its breath, waiting to see what the young king would do. Everyone expected speeches, bold declarations, immediate action to establish authority. Instead, Solomon vanished. He slipped away to Gibeon, a quiet place of worship, far from the palace, far from the crowds, far from everyone's expectations and opinions. The king went to Gibeon to offer sacrifices, for that was the most important high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. 1 Kings 3 verse 4. 1,000 offerings, hour after hour, day after day, in complete silence and solitude. No press releases about his devotion, no audience to impress, no advisors to consult first. Just Solomon, alone with God, dealing with the crushing weight of inadequacy he felt. His heart pounded with fear. His mind raced with doubts. But instead of making noise to prove himself, he withdrew into silence to find himself. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6 verse 6. While the world waited, Solomon worked in secret. And in that silence, God moved. That night in Gibeon, alone with his thoughts, Solomon's mind wouldn't stop racing. He was just a young man, inexperienced, untested, and now he held the future of an entire nation in his hands. His father David had been a warrior king, a giant slayer, a military genius, a man after God's own heart. How could Solomon ever fill those shoes? The pressure was suffocating. The expectations were crushing. Every decision he would make could save or destroy thousands of lives. But Solomon didn't call an emergency press conference to share his struggles. He didn't gather his advisors to process his feelings. He didn't post about his journey for encouragement. He suffered in silence. And in that silence, something profound happened. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon during the night in a dream, and God said, "Ask for whatever you want me to give you." 1 Kings 3 verse 5. God showed up, not in the noise, not in the public moments, not when Solomon was trying to prove himself to others. God appeared in the silent struggle, the private wrestle that no one else witnessed. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Habakkuk 2 verse 20. There's something sacred about silent suffering, something that happens in the secret place of struggle that can never happen on a stage. Solomon's silence wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. He understood that some battles must be fought alone, in the quiet, where only God can see. And God always sees. When God offered Solomon anything he wanted, this was Solomon's moment to shine, to impress, to make a statement that would echo through history. He could have prayed loudly, eloquently, with impressive theological language that would make him sound wise. Instead, his prayer was simple, humble, raw. So give your servant a discerning heart to govern your people and to distinguish between right and wrong. For who is able to govern this great people of yours? 1 Kings 3 verse 9. No grand declarations, no claiming and proclaiming, no demanding his breakthrough, just honest vulnerability. I don't know what I'm doing. I need you. The most powerful prayer in history was whispered in the dark by a terrified young man who knew he was in over his head. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. Psalm 34 verse 18. There's power in quiet desperation that loud confidence can never access. When you stop trying to impress God and start being honest with Him, something shifts in the atmosphere. Solomon didn't pray to be heard by men. He prayed to be helped by God. And that made all the difference. And when you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to pray standing in the synagogues and on the street corners to be seen by others. Matthew 6 verse 5. God wasn't impressed by volume or vocabulary. He was moved by humility and honesty. That quiet prayer in the darkness unlocked what no amount of loud praying ever could. What happened next changed Solomon forever. But here's what most people miss. No one else was there to witness it. God didn't just answer Solomon's prayer. He overwhelmed him with blessing beyond imagination. So God said to him, "Since you have asked for this, and not for long life or wealth for yourself, or have not asked for the death of your enemies, but for discernment in administering justice, I will do what you have asked. I will give you a wise and discerning heart, so that there will never have been anyone like you, nor will there ever be." 1 Kings 3 verses 11 to 12. And then God added what Solomon never asked for. "Moreover, I will give you what you have not asked for, both wealth and honor, so that in your lifetime you will have no equal among kings." 1 Kings 3 verse 13. This entire divine transaction happened in secret, in silence, in the dark, with no witnesses, no cameras, no documentation. Solomon could have immediately run back to tell everyone what happened. He could have called a press conference. "You won't believe what God just promised me." But he didn't. A prudent person keeps their knowledge to themselves, but a fool's heart blurts out folly. Proverbs 12 verse 23. Solomon understood something profound. Sacred things must be protected. Divine encounters aren't for public consumption. Some blessings lose their power when you broadcast them prematurely. He kept the secret transaction secret. And in that silence, the promise began to germinate like a seed planted in dark soil. When Solomon returned from Gibeon, he didn't come back announcing what God had promised. He didn't gather the nation to declare his coming greatness. He didn't even tell his closest advisors about the divine encounter. He simply went back to work. Then Solomon awoke, and he realized it had been a dream. He returned to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the Lord's covenant, and sacrificed burnt offerings and fellowship offerings. Then he gave a feast for all his court. 1 Kings 3 verse 15. Notice what's missing. Any mention of the promise, any declaration of the blessing, any claim of divine favor. Just worship, just gratitude, just silent obedience. The most profound promise in his life, and Solomon said nothing about it publicly. He let God reveal it in his timing, not through Solomon's announcements. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Proverbs 27 verse 1. There's incredible restraint in this. Solomon had every reason to tell everyone. He had divine confirmation. He had a guaranteed future of unprecedented wisdom and wealth. But he stayed silent because he understood, when God makes you a promise in private, you protect it in silence until he reveals it in public. You don't announce the harvest while it's still a seed. The world would soon see what God had done. But first, Solomon had to guard it in the secret place. And that silence, that discipline to not prematurely expose what God was building, became part of the blessing itself. Shortly after his return, Solomon faced his first major test as king. 2 women came before him, both claiming the same baby as their own. No witnesses, no evidence. An impossible case. The entire court watched. This was Solomon's moment to prove himself, or to be exposed as inadequate. But Solomon didn't panic. He didn't call for advisors. He didn't ask for time to think. He didn't make a show of his process. He simply spoke. Then the king said, "Bring me a sword." So they brought a sword for the king. He then gave an order. Cut the living child in two, and give half to one and half to the other. 1 Kings 3 verses 24 to 25. The brilliance was instant. The real mother immediately revealed herself through her reaction. Justice was served with surgical precision. When all Israel heard the verdict the king had given, they held the king in awe, because they saw that he had wisdom from God to administer justice. 1 Kings 3 verse 28. Here's what's profound. Solomon never said, "God gave me this wisdom." He never referenced his divine encounter. He never explained the source of his insight. He let his actions speak. The wisdom proved itself without Solomon having to announce it. Let someone else praise you, and not your own mouth, an outsider, and not your own lips. Proverbs 27 verse 2. Silent competence is more powerful than loud claims. The wisdom God gave Solomon in private was now manifesting in public. But Solomon still said nothing about where it came from. He let the fruit reveal the root. As months turned to years, something remarkable happened. Solomon's wisdom began producing wealth, massive, unprecedented wealth. The weight of the gold that Solomon received yearly was 666 talents, not including the revenues from merchants and traders and from all the Arabian kings and the governors of the territories. 1 Kings 10 verses 14 to 15. 25 tons of gold, every single year, plus countless other revenue streams. But here's what's stunning. There's no record of Solomon bragging about it. No inscriptions celebrating his wealth. No monuments to his financial success. He accumulated in silence. While other kings plastered their walls with boasts of conquest and riches, Solomon quietly built. He didn't announce every financial milestone. He didn't post his quarterly earnings. He didn't compare himself to other kings. Wealth attracts many friends, but even the closest friend of the poor person deserts them. Proverbs 19 verse 4. Solomon wrote these words from experience. He understood that loud displays of wealth attract the wrong people, opportunists, flatterers, those who love your money but not you. So he kept his accumulation quiet, strategic, protected. The wealth was real, massive, undeniable. But Solomon didn't need the world to validate it through applause. He didn't need to announce his net worth to feel successful. Whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 10. Silent accumulation breeds contentment. Loud displays breed comparison. Solomon chose wisely. While Solomon's wealth and wisdom became famous, what most people never saw was the daily discipline behind it. Every morning before the court assembled, before advisors arrived, before the demands of kingship began, Solomon was working in silence. He was writing. He spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. 1 Kings 4 verse 32. 3,000 proverbs, over 1,000 songs, written quietly, steadily, without fanfare or announcement. These weren't created in a burst of public inspiration. They were crafted in private moments, early mornings, late nights, stolen hours when no one was watching. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 21 verse 5. Solomon understood that lasting impact is built in obscurity. The wisdom that would guide humanity for millennia wasn't written on a stage. It was penned in solitude. No social media posts, just finished proverb #1, 247. Fire. No updates. Can't believe I'm writing wisdom that will last forever. #blessed. Just silent, consistent, faithful work. Day after day. Year after year. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Ecclesiastes 9 verse 10. The world only saw the finished product, the compiled proverbs, the completed songs. They never saw the thousands of hours of hidden labor that produced them. And that's exactly how Solomon wanted it. The work spoke. He didn't need to. As Solomon's success grew, so did the critics. Other kings envied him. Political rivals questioned his methods. Some doubted his wisdom was genuine. The noise around him got louder. The accusations more pointed. The jealousy more obvious. And Solomon's response? Silence. There's no record of Solomon defending himself. No royal proclamations refuting his critics. No public rebuttals to those who questioned him. He simply continued doing what God called him to do. When words are many, sin is not absent, but the prudent hold their tongues. Proverbs 10 verse 19. Solomon wrote this from experience. He learned that defending yourself to critics is often a waste of breath. Your success will either speak for itself or it won't, but arguing about it changes nothing. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26 verse 4. Every moment spent defending yourself is a moment stolen from building yourself. Every word wasted on critics is energy not invested in your calling. Solomon refused to be distracted by the noise. While others talked about him, he worked. While they criticized, he created. While they complained, he built. Like a gold ring in a pig's snout is a beautiful woman who shows no discretion. Proverbs 11 verse 22. He understood that discretion, knowing when not to speak, was more valuable than any clever comeback. Silence in the face of criticism isn't weakness. It's wisdom. The critics eventually faded into history. Solomon's legacy remained. But then something shifted. Years into his reign, after decades of silent success, Solomon made a tragic mistake. He started talking too much about the wrong things to the wrong people. King Solomon, however, loved many foreign women besides Pharaoh's daughter, Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites. 1 Kings 11 verse 1. He began making alliances through marriage, forming relationships that required him to compromise, to negotiate, to speak words that contradicted God's commands. They were from nations about which the Lord had told the Israelites, "You must not intermarry with them, because they will surely turn your hearts after their gods." Nevertheless, Solomon held fast to them in love. 1 Kings 11 verse 2. The man who had gained everything through silent obedience began losing everything through vocal compromise. He started explaining away God's commands, rationalizing his choices, defending his political marriages, speaking where he should have stayed silent. Sin is not ended by multiplying words, but the prudent hold their tongues. Proverbs 10 verse 19. Solomon had written these words himself, but now he was violating his own wisdom. 700 wives, 300 concubines, each relationship requiring conversation, negotiation, compromise, each voice pulling him further from the silence where God had met him. As Solomon grew old, his wives turned his heart after other gods, and his heart was not fully devoted to the Lord his God, as the heart of David his father had been. 1 Kings 11 verse 4. The noise of 1,000 voices drowned out the one voice that mattered, and everything began to crumble. Solomon's palace became deafening. 1,000 women, each with her own demands, her own gods, her own voice competing for attention. The man who had once withdrawn into silence to hear God now couldn't find silence anywhere. He had 700 wives of royal birth and 300 concubines, and his wives led him astray. 1 Kings 11 verse 3. Led him astray, not through force, but through constant influence. The steady noise of their voices, their requests, their religious practices slowly reprogramming his heart. Solomon began building altars to foreign gods. The same man who built the temple for the Lord was now constructing shrines to Ashtoreth, Chemosh, and Molech. So the Lord said to Solomon, "Since this is your attitude, and you have not kept my covenant and my decrees, which I commanded you, I will most certainly tear the kingdom away from you and give it to one of your subordinates." 1 Kings 11 verse 11. The breakdown of silence led to the breakdown of everything. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27 verse 12. Solomon had written this warning, but he didn't heed it. He kept adding voices, kept making compromises, kept explaining away his disobedience. The silent beginning that brought unlimited blessing was replaced by a noisy decline that brought divine judgment. He forgot the principle that made him. Sacred silence with God produces success. Constant noise with the world produces destruction. In his final years, broken and haunted by his failures, Solomon returned to what he had abandoned: silence. He began writing again. Not songs of victory this time, but words of painful reflection. The book of Ecclesiastes, raw, honest, devastating. Meaningless. Meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 2. These weren't the words of a young king full of ambition. These were the confessions of an old man who had everything and lost what mattered most. He wrote in solitude now, no longer surrounded by 1,000 voices, but alone with his regrets and his God. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Ecclesiastes 1 verse 14. The noise had cost him everything: his peace, his devotion, his kingdom's unity. Even his relationship with God had been damaged. But in the silence of his final years, Solomon rediscovered the truth he had known as a young man. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46 verse 10. He couldn't undo his mistakes. The consequences were irreversible. But he could warn the next generation. He could write down what he learned through devastation. And so he did, in silence, with a pen and a broken heart. His final writings weren't polished wisdom from an ivory tower. They were blood-bought lessons from a man who learned the hard way. You can have all the noise in the world and lose your soul. After a lifetime of experiencing both the blessing of silence and the destruction of noise, Solomon wrote his final verdict. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 13. All has been heard. After all the voices, all the advice, all the compromises, all the noise, this was what remained. Not build your empire. Not maximize your influence. Not let everyone know your success. Just fear God. Keep his commandments. That's it. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12 verse 14. Solomon circled back to where he started. The hidden things matter most. What you do in secret, in the silence, where only God sees, determines your ultimate outcome. The public success means nothing if the private devotion is gone. The loud achievements ring hollow when the quiet obedience has ceased. Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Go near to listen rather than to offer the sacrifice of fools, who do not know that they do wrong. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 1. Listen, be quiet, guard your steps. These were the principles that made Solomon great. These were the principles he abandoned in his pride. And these were the principles he returned to in his brokenness. His final message to humanity: the noise will destroy you. The silence will save you. Choose wisely. Today, Solomon's warning is more relevant than ever. We live in the loudest generation in human history. Every thought broadcasted, every meal photographed, every achievement announced, every struggle shared, every moment documented. The average person checks their phone 96 times per day. We're addicted to noise, creating it, consuming it, drowning in it. Do not be quick with your mouth. Do not be hasty in your heart to utter anything before God. God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Ecclesiastes 5 verse 2. But modern culture teaches the opposite. Speak quickly, share constantly, announce everything. If you're not making noise, you're not making progress. We've confused visibility with validity. We think if people don't see our success, it doesn't count. If we don't announce our blessings, they're not real. So we talk, and talk, and talk about our goals, our grind, our journey, our breakthrough that's coming, our plans, our dreams, our everything. When words are many, sin is not absent, but the prudent hold their tongues. Proverbs 10 verse 19. And in all that noise, we lose what Solomon found in silence, the actual presence of God, the real wisdom, the genuine breakthrough. We're so busy telling everyone what we're building that we never actually build it. So busy announcing the harvest that we never plant the seed. So busy making noise about our success that we never achieve it. Solomon's principle isn't outdated. It's urgent. Solomon's life reveals something crucial. Silence isn't about never speaking. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. There's a season for everything. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be silent and a time to speak. Ecclesiastes 3 verses 1 and 7. Strategic silence means silence before breakthrough, protecting the promise while it's still forming. Silence during building, working without announcing every step. Silence after success, letting your results speak louder than your claims. Solomon demonstrated all three. He was silent before God gave him wisdom. He was silent while accumulating wealth. And initially, he was silent even after achieving unprecedented success. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. Proverbs 13 verse 3. But strategic silence also means speaking boldly when necessary. Solomon spoke with authority in the courtroom. He spoke with clarity when teaching wisdom. He spoke with conviction when building the temple. The difference? His words had power because they weren't diluted by constant noise. When someone speaks rarely, people listen carefully. When someone speaks constantly, people tune out. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Proverbs 17 verse 28. Strategic silence makes your words valuable. Constant noise makes them worthless. The question isn't, should I ever speak? It's, am I speaking too much about things that should stay silent? Solomon's life teaches us exactly what must be guarded in silence. Not everything deserves to be shared. Some things lose their power when exposed too soon. Protect your promises from God. When God speaks to you in private, keep it private until he makes it public. Solomon received his promise in Gibeon alone. He didn't immediately announce it to the kingdom. Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. Luke 2 verse 19. Protect your process. The world doesn't need to see every step of your journey. Let them see the destination. Solomon didn't document his daily disciplines, his struggles, his learning curve. He just did the work. Protect your prayers. Your most intimate conversations with God aren't content for public consumption. Some things are too sacred to share. But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father, who is unseen. Matthew 6 verse 6. Protect your plans. Announce results, not intentions. Solomon didn't tell everyone he was going to build the temple before he built it. He just started building. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Proverbs 27 verse 1. Protect your peace. You don't owe everyone an explanation. You don't need to defend every decision. Some things you just know in your spirit, and that's enough. The moment Solomon stopped protecting these things in silence, everything began to unravel. The noise invaded what should have stayed sacred. What are you exposing that you should be protecting? Solomon's wisdom didn't come from talking. It came from listening, first to God, then to life itself. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. Proverbs 12 verse 15. Before Solomon became known for speaking wisdom, he mastered the art of silent observation. He listened to nature, studied human behavior, observed patterns in life. He spoke about plant life, from the cedar of Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of walls. He also spoke about animals and birds, reptiles and fish. 1 Kings 4 verse 33. This wasn't casual interest. This was disciplined listening, paying attention, watching, learning in silence before teaching with words. To answer before listening, that is folly and shame. Proverbs 18 verse 13. Most people today do the opposite. They speak before they listen. They broadcast before they learn. They teach before they've mastered. The result? Empty words, shallow insights, noise without substance. Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance. Proverbs 1 verse 5. Solomon understood that silence creates space for learning. You can't hear God when you're constantly talking. You can't observe truth when you're always performing. The discipline of listening requires closing your mouth long enough to open your ears, watching more than you speak, absorbing before you project, learning before you claim expertise. Solomon's Proverbs weren't random thoughts. They were observations collected in years of silent attention. He listened to life, then spoke wisdom. We've reversed the order, and we wonder why our words carry no weight. There's a reason the enemy works so hard to keep you talking, posting, announcing, sharing, broadcasting. He knows something you might not realize. Silence is where God speaks. Noise is where God's voice gets drowned out. The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake came a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. 1 Kings 19 verses 11 to 12. Not in the wind. Not in the earthquake. Not in the fire. In the whisper. God speaks in whispers. And you can't hear whispers in the middle of noise. The enemy doesn't need to stop you from praying. He just needs to keep you so distracted, so busy broadcasting your life that you never hear God's response. Solomon's downfall began when his life became too noisy to hear God anymore. 1,000 voices, all competing for attention, until God's voice was completely drowned out. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. 1 Peter 5 verse 8. The roar of distraction, the noise of constant content, the endless scroll, the addiction to validation through likes and comments. These aren't innocent habits. They're strategic attacks on your ability to hear God. When was the last time you sat in complete silence for an hour? No phone, no music, no podcast, just you and God. If the thought terrifies you, the enemy has already won. If you've spent years living loudly, constantly announcing, posting, seeking validation through noise, returning to silence will be one of the hardest things you ever do. Your flesh will scream. Your ego will panic. The fear of being forgotten will feel overwhelming. But here's the truth. Everything meaningful in your life will come from what you do in the silence, not from what you announce in the noise. Come with me by yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest. Mark 6 verse 31. Jesus modeled this constantly. He withdrew. He disappeared. He sought solitude even at the height of his ministry when crowds were desperate for him. He understood, you can't give from an empty well, and the well is only filled in silence. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Luke 5 verse 16. Often. Not once. Not occasionally. Often. Returning to silence means turning off your phone for extended periods without anxiety, praying without posting about it, working on your goals without updating everyone on your progress, letting weeks pass without announcing what you're building, being okay with people not knowing what God is doing in your life. The one who has knowledge uses words with restraint, and whoever has understanding is even-tempered. Proverbs 17 verse 27. This will feel like death, because in many ways it is death to the ego, death to the need for external validation, death to the addiction to attention. But on the other side of that death is resurrection. The same power that raised Christ will raise what you build in silence. Solomon found this out too late. You don't have to. Here's the final truth Solomon learned. The success that matters most is the success nobody sees. The private victories, the secret obedience, the quiet faithfulness when no one is watching and no one is applauding, so that your giving may be in secret. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6 verse 4. Solomon's greatest success wasn't his wealth or his wisdom or his international fame. It was the night in Gibeon when he humbled himself before God in complete obscurity. Everything else flowed from that one silent moment. The public success was just the fruit. The silent surrender was the root. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not consider his appearance or his height, for I have rejected him." The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16, verse 7. God doesn't measure success the way we do. He doesn't count followers, views, or applause. He looks at the heart, what you do when nobody's watching, what you build when nobody's applauding. The silent prayer at 5 a.m. when your house is still asleep. The decision to obey God even when it costs you everything. The choice to stay humble when you have every reason to boast. The discipline to keep your mouth shut when you could impress everyone. These are the moments that define you, not the stage moments, the secret moments. His master replied, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." Matthew 25, verse 23. Faithful, not famous, not impressive, faithful. And faithfulness is almost always silent. Solomon's story isn't just ancient history. It's a mirror. And if you're honest, you see yourself in it. You see the potential of what silence could unlock. And you see the destruction that noise has already caused. The question is, what will you do about it? This day I call the heavens and the earth as witnesses against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life. Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. Most people will finish this video, feel inspired for about 10 minutes, and then go right back to the noise. They'll post about needing to be more silent. They'll share this video with a caption about choosing peace. They'll announce their new commitment to solitude, and they'll completely miss the point. Because the principle of silent success can't be talked about constantly. It has to be lived quietly. When you fast, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, for they disfigure their faces to show others they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward in full. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father, who is unseen, and your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you. Matthew 6, verses 16 to 18. Here's my challenge to you, and it will be harder than anything else I've ever asked. For the next 30 days, go silent about what God is doing in your life. Don't post about your prayers. Don't announce your goals. Don't share your breakthroughs. Don't document your process. Just work. In silence. Let God see. Let that be enough. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Psalm 37, verse 7. This will expose every addiction you have to validation, attention, and applause. Your fingers will itch to post. Your ego will scream for recognition. The fear of being forgotten will be almost unbearable. But push through it. Because on the other side of 30 days of disciplined silence, you'll discover what Solomon discovered. God moves powerfully in the quiet places. He rewards what's done in secret. He honors those who don't need the world's applause because they have His approval. But if you can't do it, if 30 days without announcing your spiritual life feels impossible, then you need to know you're already in danger. You're already more addicted to noise than you realize. You're already valuing visibility over intimacy with God. You're already on the same path that destroyed Solomon. What good is it for someone to gain the whole world, yet forfeit their soul? Mark 8, verse 36. You can have 1 million followers and lose your soul in the process. You can be famous for your faith and far from God in your heart. Solomon had it all, and when the noise took over, he lost what mattered most. Don't let that be your story. But if you'll accept the challenge, if you'll embrace strategic silence, protect what's sacred, and build in obscurity, here's what I promise you. God will meet you there, in the quiet, in the secret place, where no one else can see. And what He gives you in that silence will be worth more than anything you could have gained through noise. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14, verse 14. He's not impressed by your announcements. He's moved by your obedience. He doesn't reward your visibility. He rewards your faithfulness. He doesn't bless your noise. He inhabits your silence. Solomon's life teaches us that you have two options: silent success, built in obscurity, rooted in God, lasting for eternity, or loud failure, celebrated by people, empty before God, forgotten by history. The choice is yours. But you can't have both. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. Matthew 6 verse 24. You can serve the applause of people or the approval of God. You can build for visibility or for eternity. You can chase noise or pursue His presence. But you must choose. Right now, before you do anything else, make the choice. Turn off your phone. Close your computer. Get on your knees and meet God in the silence. Don't post about it. Don't tell anyone. Just do it. Let this be the beginning of your return to the secret place. The place where Solomon found everything. The place where you'll find it too. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46 verse 10. Be still. Stop the noise. Quiet your soul. And know Him. That's where everything changes. Solomon spent his final years warning us. The noise will cost you everything. The silence will save you. Don't learn this lesson the way he did, through devastation and regret. Learn it now. Choose silence now. Build in the secret place now. And watch what God does when you finally stop performing for people and start surrendering to Him. The principle no one talks about is the principle that changes everything. Silent success, hidden faithfulness, secret obedience. That's where the breakthrough is. That's where God is waiting. Will you meet Him there? If this message wrecked you, don't share it immediately. Sit with it. Let it do its work in silence first. Then, when you're ready, subscribe to Life in Christ for more biblical truth that transforms from the inside out. But don't comment about your commitment to silence. Just do it. Let your actions speak louder than your words. 30 days. Starting now. Go silent about what God is doing, and let Him shock you with what He does in the secret place. God bless you. I'll see you in the next one.